Okay, go ahead, Faraz.
Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum. Jumma Mubarak. I hope you guys are well and I hope your fasts are going great. So I'm one of the advisor at US Education Foundation. I'm an Education USA advisor. Just to give you guys a brief idea about what USCFP and what Education USA is. US Education Foundation, where we are based in. US Education Foundation is a binational commission established in 1951. We have three different departments. We have three offices, Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. Our main office is in Islamabad. We have three different departments. Our main department is the scholarship department, where we administer US government funded scholarship program. We have degree program. We have non-degree program. We have the largest Fulbright degree program in the world. So the second department we have is the testing department, where we administer tests to study in US, tests required to study in US, tests required to practice. If you are a professional doctor, you want to practice medicine in US, you need to appear for USMLE exam, you need to come to our center to appear for USMLE exam. So we administer tests to study, to practice professional field in US. So the third department we have is the Education USA advising. Education USA is a state department network of around 450 advising centers in 170 plus countries. So there are around 450 advisors all over the world. In Pakistan, we are 12 advisors. All advisors are US grads. So we provide a comprehensive official formal information on US education. So if you are interested in going to US for bachelor's, master's, or PhD, the official source of information is Education USA. So come and talk to us, reach out to us. How you can do that? You can get yourself registered if you haven't already. So go to our website at uscfpakistan.org. There is a tab that's called Education USA Advising. Click it. On the right hand side, you will see Education USA again. Click it, then you will see a small form. Fill it and submit it. As soon as you submit, you will be assigned an advisor that can guide you for free. So you can come and talk to us. Because of this situation, like because of this pandemic, we are not advising students one-to-one, but in general situation, we advise students. You can come and talk to us individually to our offices. You can email us, you can call us. Right now, because of this pandemic, we are doing all our sessions, all our activities online. So today we are having this session. The session is about MBA, and we have two very good universities and two very good representatives from these universities. We have Shri, who has a PhD, and she's from Syracuse University. We have Jake, who is from Ohio University, and they will be talking about MBA, and they will be talking about their respective universities. So Shri, over to you. Thank you so much.
Faraz, thank you for that. It is such a pleasure to work with the Education USA office and the US Educational Foundation in Pakistan. Thank you for having us and inviting us to participate on this panel. My name is Shri Ramakrishnan. I am the Assistant Director for Graduate Recruitment at Syracuse University's Martin J. Whitman School of Management. Could somebody advance to the next slide, please? The second or the third slide, actually. Hello?
Hi, Shri. Is it not advancing for you?
No.
Faraz, is it advancing for you?
No, no.
Okay, just experiencing a little technical difficulty.
Yeah.
I think it's because you have to enable editing.
Okay.
It's unprotected
Can
view.
you just enable editing and then start? So how about if Jake can introduce himself right now?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Hey everyone, my name is Jake Wuensch. I'm the graduate recruiter for MBA at Fischer College of Business at Ohio State University.
Next slide.
Yeah, looks like we're
there
all
we
good.
go.
There we are. Yeah, that's us. Shri's going to give you a kind of overview of MBA and what that entails, and then I'll go into some more of the details after that. Okay?
Okay, so can we go back to the first slide? Yeah, right there. Perfect. So the way we thought we would take you through this session today is to just lay out a little bit about the MBA landscape, because a lot of times students who are planning to continue their further education after they have completed their undergraduate degree can sometimes go in two different directions. The specialized master's degrees that I have listed here is actually a newer consideration, relatively newer consideration at US universities. And the most commonly opted for degree, of course, happens to be the Master's in Business Administration, or as everybody very lovingly calls it, the MBA. But it's important to consider whether an MBA is actually the best choice for yourself, or whether you would benefit from approaching a specialized master's degree with the same intention, and then see which one would actually get you to go from point A to point B in your career trajectory. So we put down a little bit, a few thoughts about the differences between the MBA and the specialized master's degree. And then there are some pre-application things that we would like for you to focus on. And then, of course, in general, because both panelists on today's session happen to represent US universities, we have similar admissions requirements. So we thought we would talk about that. And then to go into a discussion about any specific questions that students might have. Now, we have fairly, as you can tell from this overview slide, tried to keep the content very general and not specific to either of our programs, but we will mention briefly about the programs that we do have. And if you have specific questions, of course, you will have our email addresses. Can we move to the next slide, please? Just for the emails. Yeah, so our emails are right there. And then I'm sure you can also reach out to the advisors at USEFP to get in touch with us as well. And so if you move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so here, let's start with the MBA landscape. So typically, MBA programs are not the same across the world. You do hear a lot of universities doing different types of sessions. Almost every business school seems to have at least one version of an MBA program. So it's important for you as a student to understand what are the different types of the MBA programs and which one might be better suited for you at the point in time when you are approaching furthering your graduate education and are thinking about it, right? So of course there is research, there is the importance of shortlisting your universities and trying to understand how you decide on a program, but first you need to know which program. So most US universities, I want to say, typically offer 2-year full-time MBA programs. There are some that do offer a 1-year full-time MBA program as well, but traditionally the emphasis has been towards the 2-year full-time MBA. The reason for that is that the demographic that is targeted is typically students who have graduated with an undergraduate degree. It does not matter if your degree is not in business, but have graduated with an undergraduate degree, have entered the workforce in some capacity, and have recognized that there are certain strengths and weaknesses that they bring to their particular job and role, and there are things that they would want to address and grow stronger in. This could also be the time when you have typically been in the workforce for at least a year or two and have identified some areas where you actually want to gain some depth of knowledge, but you have also possibly recognized that you have an interest in going towards learning the administrative or the management side of business. And so the 2-year program then allows you to expand and understand not just the general operations and the general management content, but also allows you to take the area that you would like to specialize in, gain some specialty knowledge in that particular field. So you get the breadth and the depth, and also allows you to potentially explore an internship opportunity. So you get the theoretical as well as the practical component put into a package, which is made possible by the 2-year program. The 1-year degree full-time allows you to gain the same experience in terms of the breadth and the depth, but it would be a little more truncated, which means it becomes a little more intense. And the demographic that it targets then could be potentially people who have had more than a couple of years of work experience. Typically, this was how it was offered, and the 1-year MBA is more like the European style, and where people usually go into an MBA program at a later stage than most students who come to the US universities look at. So the work experience is one of the things that you want to consider in terms of when you are approaching when you're approaching the type of program that you want to choose. Outside of this, there are also the online MBA programs that are available, and these are typically for people who are already in a work situation and are unable to travel to a university in order to attend courses in person because of life circumstances, job circumstances, family situation, circumstantial. It can be anything, right? And so for those people, the online program might be a better option, but then the caveat is you will not have that full-time experience. So typically online programs for early career professionals might be a little difficult to navigate, but that's not to say you cannot do it, but you might want to do more in-depth research to understand whether the program is for you. And then the final version of the final type of MBA program option could be a hybrid option, but then a hybrid option is not very commonly offered, and might be something in these unprecedented times that universities might have to think about. And this is where you might be hearing some talk about, if students get admitted for this fall semester, is there a possibility they don't attend in person in the fall, but then come in the spring? Is there a hybrid option? So there is discussion around it, but it's not a very commonly offered program especially for international students. It might be more of an option that's available for domestic students through part-time programs and things like that. So in addition to all of this, like in the landscape of the different types of opportunities and programs, in the last couple of decades, there has been a growth in what we call the specialized master's programs, or the MS programs. These programs are, can we advance to the next slide, please? These programs are more common in Europe, but they are shorter in duration. They are more intense. This came out of the need from the industry to have a population that was ready for the industry, but that came in with more specialized knowledge. And so universities responded to that with these specialized master's programs, which basically will give you a brief overview about general management, and then will focus more on the depth. For instance, you will see programs like traditional business disciplines, such as, masters in accounting or a master's in finance. And more recently, of course, the trend is with analytics. There are different versions of that. So a common one would be business analytics or data analytics, depending on where you look at it and which university offers it. These programs typically do not require work experience. They may or may not include summer internship opportunities, but then the goal of the program is to provide depth of study in a particular disciplinary area to prepare candidates for the job market, right? So where the MBA requires some amount of work experience, typically at least a year or two. So you graduate from a classroom and then you go out into the workforce, you gain some experience, and then you come back into the classroom armed with your own personal experiences of what are your strengths and weaknesses. And then you come into the program knowing that the program will fill those gaps or strengthen or help you overcome whatever shortcomings you might have experienced, and then equip you with the theoretical and practical experiences needed that will take you back into the workforce, right? Specialized master's programs, on the other hand, take you from, you graduate from a classroom with an undergraduate degree, you come back into a master's program, you continue your education, there is no work experience required, and then you learn your additional content in a depth area because you've identified an area to specialize in, and you continue with that, and then you become equipped to enter the job market after your master's degree. The master's degree can be for 1 year. In some cases, if it includes an internship, could be 1.5 years, but typically does not, may not be as long as 2 years unless there is like additional co-op opportunities or anything of the sort, but usually shorter, but more intense. So when you're thinking about whether you want to do an MBA or you want to choose a specialized master's, one of the things we always recommend students to do is to self-introspect. Self-inquiry, self-introspection, very important, because another person telling you what to do is one way of looking at it, but that is obviously not going to be the best way for you because it may not be something that you are ultimately interested in pursuing. If you want to be really successful, you might want to identify whether an MBA or a business degree is actually right for you, and what is it about the degree that you want to help you go from where you are to where you want to be in terms of your career growth and trajectory. So identifying the type of program is important. Are you able to go and take time out to attend a program in person, whether it's an MBA or a specialized master's? Are you able to attend a full-time program in a different location away from your home country? So those are some things you want to think about. But then once you identify that and you identify the type of program you want to go in for, you could use information. Of course, here you have a great resource with the EducationUSA advisors, but you want to go and identify information from also the program websites to understand what is there in terms of curriculum, in terms of potentially current students, the type of backgrounds they come from, the type of work experience they might have had, and the type of projects or internships that they are working on or working with, and what is it that the program will offer you that will then take you from where you are to where you want to be, right? So that's one way of, in general, identifying something, a research that you would possibly conduct over 12 to 18 months that I have just truncated into 15 minutes of talk. So maybe we could move to the next slide, and my colleague Jake could potentially take you through the pre-application things and other admissions details. Jake?
Sounds good. Thank you. And feel free to chip in as I'm going through if there's anything I kind of maybe forget or something you think you could add to the conversation here.
Sure.
I'm by no means the ultimate authority on this. But yeah, now that we've kind of got a broad overview of what the MBA world is and what one's for, a lot of the questions we get as counselors typically are about actually applying. And so we'll go through the kind of application process here in a minute. But first things first, there's some things to consider before you apply. The first and I think most obvious one is to make sure the program is the right fit for you. Shri kind of touched on this already, but do your research, go online. You can basically every program out there will post their curriculum and the results, so to speak, where people end up. Dig into those, see if it's really what you want. If they, if you're really interested in finance and maybe a certain program you thought you liked doesn't have a specialization in that, that's a pretty important factor to consider. So make sure you really do your research there and look at that curriculum. Next other thing to think about before applying is when you want to apply. There's two main ways universities do admissions for MBAs. I think the most common one is going to be rounds. So basically there'll be 3 to 5 rounds spread throughout the year. And how these work is there will be one application deadline when, if you've submitted your application by, let's say, November 1st, you're guaranteed a decision by, December 15th, for example. Then, basically you just fall into one of these rounds throughout the year. Usually they start in October to November and end in May or June typically, though of course this year is a little bit abnormal. But then the other type of admission is rolling admission. So this is basically just where programs accept students on a continuous basis. It's nice because there's no hard deadlines. If you miss one, you don't have to wait until the next one necessarily. But the downside is they tend to be a little less precise as when you will receive your actual decision, since they're constantly reviewing things. Either way, when you're looking at applying, whether it's rounds or rolling, we found that the most important thing is to actually apply when you're ready. A lot of people feel this rush to, apply in round 1 or as soon as the application opens. And we've really found that that's not the most helpful thing. It's much better to wait until you've got an application that you're confident in, that really represents you, than just get it in as soon as you can, which can actually be detrimental. Next part, which is really important, obviously, is going to be funding availability. Make sure you dig into this on the website. You may have to contact an admissions counselor about this, but funding availability varies pretty widely from school to school. Some programs will consider everyone automatically. You don't have to do anything extra. And they will consider you throughout the entire application cycle. So round 1 or round 5, you'll be automatically considered. But then a lot of other programs have specific deadlines. So maybe you have to have your application in by, January 15th or round 2 in order to be considered for funding. This is usually pretty obvious on a website, but it's really important. If you've got a dream school, you apply in round 4 and then it turns out they don't have any funding left, that can really be negative. So make sure you do your research here. Do keep in mind as well that although a lot of programs will award funding throughout the entire admission cycle, there's generally more funding available earlier in the year. So in that first couple rounds usually is when most of the funding is, you've got your best shot at getting the most funding, I would say. And the last process or last part of this, which kind of leads into the actual admissions requirements section, is holistic review. This is a term you'll probably hear a lot, or you may see on websites. The idea is that it kind of gets away from, just minimum test scores or things like that to be required. Basically, it just means that we're going to look at all aspects of your application, not just one particular thing. So, we don't need like a 600 GMAT to consider you. We're going to look at all aspects of this. I don't know that all universities use holistic review, but I would say the vast majority of MBA programs are going to do holistic review. We really like it. It's a way for us to find a good fit. We want to find candidates who suit our program well and where it can be a mutually beneficial relationship, rather than finding people who just have, certain set statistics, basically. So next slide. So first thing here is what almost everyone is most curious about, which is test scores. You probably all are familiar with GRE, and if you're here for MBA, obviously, you probably know about GMAT. GMAT is traditionally the most common exam for business schools, though this is changing. More and more business schools throughout the US accept GRE. In fact, I think I'd be surprised if you found a business school at this point that does not accept GRE. Generally speaking, they're treated exactly the same. You know, I would talk with an admissions counselor if you have any doubts about this, but from my experience, GMAT and GRE are treated the same. You just convert them to one or the other, depending on which is your kind of standard at the university. So, you know, deciding which one to take kind of comes down to personal preference and what your goals are, I guess, and what your background is. If you've got a strong business background, accounting background, you know, GMAT probably won't be a problem for you. Whereas GRE tends to be taken by students who have maybe a less traditional business background and have a more, you know, or you're better suited to that general higher education exam like GRE offers. Another thing to think about here is that some schools, you're seeing a trend throughout the US, are going test optional. Typically, most of the elite schools are not test optional at this point, but you're starting to see that more and more. And certainly right now, with everything going on with coronavirus and the, you know, availability of test centers throughout the world, you're seeing schools make exceptions as to whether or not these exams are required. Who knows if that'll still be the case come next fall, but something to consider and certainly something to inquire about. Most of the time, this will be pretty obvious on a website if they require these exams. Another big thing for international students is going to be English proficiency. Most of you should be familiar with TOEFL or IELTS. You know, you know how to go about this process of taking these exams. A lot of programs have posted requirements for TOEFL and IELTS. That's where this is a little different than GMAT and GRE. A lot of programs do not have a minimum GMAT or GRE score, whereas most programs will have some sort of TOEFL or IELTS minimum requirement, just because that's usually set by the university. And so business programs have to abide by that. Other exams we do see are going to be PTE, Pearson Test of English, and Duolingo is also becoming more common, especially right now, again, as tests are being harder to take in person. More and more schools are accepting Duolingo. Again, check the website. TOEFL's the most common one. You can't go wrong taking TOEFL, but if for some reason you want to take one of these other ones, make sure the program you're interested in applying to accepts them. And then importantly, make sure the scores are sent officially to the universities. They need to be sent electronically most of the time. Sometimes schools can review an application with unofficial scores, but at the end of the day, we always need to have the official ones with us, so you might as well send them to us up front just to speed up the process. Next thing we'll look at here is transcripts. There's a whole bunch of ways schools do transcript policies and what's required. Generally speaking, unofficial copies of your transcripts are going to be okay for the admissions process, for the review process, I guess I should say. But just like official test scores, at some point, we're going to need to see your official transcripts. So if you have the opportunity up front to send those to us, I recommend it. Like I said, it speeds up the process. And it can really help you down the road, actually. Check with the website again. Most schools require a sealed envelope directly from your university, whether that's in Pakistan or really wherever outside the United States. But sometimes schools will accept an e-transcript if your university offers that service. So that can be a lot easier and a lot quicker if the school you're applying to accepts that. Transcripts are really important for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it allows us to get an idea of your academic ability, but it also is going to allow us to take a look at your quantitative ability. You know, obviously, that's what some of these exams are for, GMAT or GRE, but a lot of times we will also look to your transcripts for supplemental information about your quantitative background if the program you're applying to has an emphasis on quantitative ability. So something to keep in mind there. And then last part of this slide, really one of the most important parts of your MBA application is going to be the resume. you know, Shri touched on this a bit. Work experience is key to the MBA. It's one of the most important application factors a lot of the time, which is very different from most graduate programs. Your resume is how you show that to us. It's how you demonstrate your work experience or whatever experience you may have if you don't have traditional work experience. Most programs want to see pretty substantial work experience, but some are okay with lighter. It's going to depend. Again, make sure you look into this. Take a look at the class averages on the website. See, you know, if the average is 2 years work experience and you've got 4, you're in good shape. The average is 5 or 6 years and you've got 1. You know, maybe look into that a little bit. Talk to a counselor. When doing your resume, make sure it's up to date. You know, you'd be surprised how often we see resumes that ended a year ago. You know, no one bothered to update it when they were applying. It seems like an easy oversight, but it happens a lot. So just make sure you're doing that and make sure it's neat. We can tell a lot by how sloppy someone's resume is. And so, you know, there's a lot of services out there, whether it's online or in person, that can help you with your resume and can help you tailor specifically your resume to the American style, which is a little bit different than many different international resumes. So if you have the opportunity, definitely neaten that up a bit if you feel it needs it. Next slide. Cool. Interviews. This is a cool part of the MBA world that most other graduate programs don't really have. Interviews are fun. They're one of my favorite parts of the job, actually. Typically, within the US, they're in person, but more and more, whether it's in the US or internationally, we do remote interviews. Basically, every school has the capability now of doing Skype or video interviews wherever you are in the world. This is really how we get to know you. I can't tell you how many times there have been great applicants we like on paper. They've got great scores, they've got experience, and their goals make sense. And then we interview them and, you know, we're just shocked. They didn't take it seriously. They weren't very professional. And so my big advice, since virtually most of all of you here will be, you know, taking remote video interviews, you need to treat it like a normal interview. Make sure you dress well, keep your eye contact up. This is a critical part of your application. And so really, you know, be prompt, be on time, make, you know, just like you're going in for a job. You'd be surprised again how many people don't take it seriously. Next part is going to be the essays. Statement of purpose, you're probably all familiar with, or goal statement. There's various words for this. But basically, this is your opportunity to explain your goals to us. Talk about and explain why you're a good fit. This can be really important for us. You know, a lot of times people have one background. Maybe they've got a background in supply chain management and they want to go into consulting. Who knows? They want to make a pivot. Your goal statement is the opportunity for you to explain that to us so we have the context and understand what's going on. You know, ideally you will get that across in the interview as well, but goal statement is the first opportunity you have to explain that. Typically in this, you'll talk about your short and long-term goals and why the program is a good fit for you, as well as what the program gains from having you in it. You know, why it's an overall good fit. And basically then it's your opportunity to talk about your experiences and why you are the right person for us. A big thing here, and it kind of goes back to apply when you're ready. A lot of it comes down to being who you are. A lot of these essays we see people trying to be who they think we want them to be, when really we want you to be you. You don't need to try to sugarcoat this or be someone that you're not. It's really just about explaining who you are and why you'd be good for the program. You'll also see a lot of programs have additional essays. Maybe you're responding to a certain prompt or question, or there's also optional essays. If there's a prompt or a question, it seems simple, but just make sure you answer it. it's very easy. It might be, tell us about your greatest achievement. You know, it's simple. Or tell us about a time where you had to overcome something. You'd be surprised again how many people just go into this as an opportunity to brag about their work experience. We'd much rather see you answer the question. And then lastly, here you almost always have the opportunity for an optional essay. If you feel you have any weak points in your profile or your application, maybe your grades were poor for a semester, the optional essay is a great chance for you to explain that to us. It's a lot better to give us the context of what went wrong or maybe what is weak than let us make assumptions about it. So if you have that opportunity, I would take advantage of it. And also with essays, very important, proofread. Make sure you ask a friend or a colleague or someone to read over it, see if it makes sense, make sure there's no spelling errors. We do catch these things, and so if you have the chance, it's real easy, just have someone else look over it for you. And a big mistake we see a lot as well is don't reference another school. If you're applying to Syracuse and it says Ohio State in one of your essays, that's not a good look. And then last part for the admissions process is letters of recommendations. People tend to sweat these a lot. I really don't think they should. In fact, a lot of schools are going optional with letters of recommendation. With that said, a good letter of recommendation can go a long way. So who should they come from? People have a tendency to want to get their letters from the CEO or the boss's boss's boss. You know, that's really not the best thing to do. The most important thing is that it comes from someone who can speak to your ability. And typically this is your direct supervisor. We understand that's not always possible. Maybe you don't want your supervisor to know you're considering leaving, or maybe you just started a new job and your supervisor doesn't really know you well. So there are cases where a colleague or a mentor or, you know, someone like that can also serve as a recommender. The most important thing is just it's someone who can speak to your ability. It doesn't help us learn about you if the person writing your letter has met you twice and has never worked with you. So it's just something to keep in mind there. And next slide. And I thought we've touched on quite a few of these points already. Shri, if you have anything, feel free to jump in here. Again, be yourself. Don't be who you think you want us to be. Proofread everything. Have someone else proofread everything as well. Go over it all together. You'll catch more errors than you think. Know your deadlines. That one's pretty straightforward. And then don't be shy about reaching out to us. It's our job. We're admissions representatives. Take a look at the website. Our communication and how to get a hold of us is all on there. Pretty easy to see. Reach out to us. We're very happy to help, and it looks proactive. Just don't reach out 3 times a day.
I just wanted to interject and like add one other thing here in terms of, you know, when you reach out to admissions representatives, one of the things I have noticed, and I'm sure you've come across this too, Jake, it's like when you have content that's very clearly available on the website, you can review that content for yourself. When you reach out to us, view us more as folks to brainstorm with, you know, to help us understand your background a little better, to then help us guide you as to which might be the better program fit for you, right? So there's a lot more potential for you to reach out and say, rather than just say, can I have a profile evaluation? Because that's very generic, but to say, you know, I've done some initial research about your program. This is what I'm thinking. And I have, you know, very quick 2-3 bullet points about your background, maybe your undergraduate degree, if you have a master's degree, and then, you know, whether you have work experience or not. And this is what I would like to discuss. Would you be available for a phone or a Skype call? You know, we'd love to talk to students to know more about your background and where you're coming from. It's a little off-putting when you try to meet with a student and try to review candidacy and have a great conversation, and then all you get is a question like, what's your minimum GRE score or GMAT score? Right? So use us as sounding boards to discuss your potential ideas as to how the program will actually help you, and seek information about the current students. In fact, while Jake was talking, I was actually cheating on the side and contacting one of my alumni, and he responded he might actually be on this chat as well. So he works with Habib Bank, which I understand is a very prestigious institution in Pakistan. He came from Lahore. And so, that's information, again, happy to share. And I'm sure Jake has students from Pakistan as well. We have, at Syracuse, we have a current student from Lahore. So Islamabad, Karachi, come on, I'm waiting for you guys to come over. But we can share information about students who are either currently in the program or have recently graduated. And so that's another thing why you want to have a good rapport with representatives. But then outside of just getting initial information, what it does is we are the initial points of contact and represent the university, right? And represent the program. So this is your opportunity for you to build that rapport with us, because we also are the bridge to the admissions committees. So we do offer information, we share our conversations and notes. And so, we do put in our recommendations as to why we are suggesting a particular program for a candidate. And therefore, that is taken into account. Your initial impressions with us matters, and your initial conversations with us also will take you far in terms of understanding the program better, or getting introduced to the faculty directors, or overall navigating the overall admissions process. So do reach out, and we would love to chat with you. So I think in terms of the slide deck, that's about as much as we have, correct? So we should open it up to questions now.
Yep.
Sure. Thank you, Jake, and thank you, Shri. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So we have a few questions. We have questions from the Zoom chat. So let's start. So one person is asking, is GRE still valid for MBA in all universities of US?
Yeah, so most universities will accept the GRE score, but as Jake had mentioned previously, just be careful that there is a conversion factor. So ETS that administers the test has actually come up with a comparison tool. So if you go online and do a search for ETS comparison tool, you will find the tool that will allow you to plug in your verbal scores and your quantitative score, which will then show the conversion of your GRE score to the GMAT equivalent. And so schools will possibly accept your test, but then convert it to see whether the GMAT equivalent score matches the minimum or the average requirement that they have. And so it's not just a direct, and because there are two different, two different tests with two different scoring systems, I always remind students to think about it in terms of, we are comparing apples to oranges. They are both fruit. And they are somewhat similar in shape, spherical, if you will, but they're not exactly the same. So do not take the test score at its face value and just assume that the score you get in one type of test is the same as what it should be considered as. So when you do the equivalency, you might be surprised as to how your score differs. So be careful about that.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question. And if GRE is done, then GMAT is not required, right?
Yes, typically it would be one or the other test.
Okay, so another question. For MS Accounting, as I've gone through course context of some universities, the duration of degree is 9 months, 1 year, but they have prerequisite courses which they do not offer usually. can you suggest some business school that offer MS accounting of 2 years? I don't think so it's relevant, but would you like to answer, or you can just pass?
Jake, do you have anything? I mean, I can talk about our program, but.
Yeah, I don't know specifically. I mean, a lot of us have these programs. I don't know how many of them are going to be more than one academic year.
Okay, so at the Whitman School at Syracuse University, we do offer an MS in professional accounting, but we have a flexible schedule. We allow students to complete the program in either 9 months or 16 months with an internship, or extend it to 21 months, which is a 2-year program, with or without an internship. So if students already come with the necessary prerequisite background, then you might be able to complete the program in the 16-month option and throw in an internship in the summer. Otherwise, if you do not have the prerequisites, we do accept candidates without an accounting background, and we will then require you to complete the prerequisites after being admitted to the program. So that will necessarily take you into the 2-year time frame. So, and we can, I'm happy to connect with the student if Faraz or one of the other advisors can share the information.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question. I've done bachelor's in BBA, which does not cover most of the prerequisite courses. So what should I do?
So I guess I'm curious here. I wouldn't be so concerned necessarily prerequisite courses. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about your program, Shri, but like we don't necessarily have specific courses that you have to have taken in the past. The bigger thing is that the degree itself is equivalent to a U.S. bachelor's degree. So a lot of people may have 3-year bachelor's, or something slightly less than a 4-year bachelor's. It's more important, I think, to just check with the school and make sure that they accept the bachelor's degree you have than specific classes. I don't know, Shri, you might have a different take.
No, that's right. We do look for degree equivalency, and so you also want to think about when you say you have an undergraduate degree in business administration and you are applying to a business school, that basically covers your, any prerequisites, but there is no specific prerequisites unless it is a quantitative program that has anything very particular in terms of we need to have programming experience. But usually, even for business analytics programs, they don't require they might require a particular undergraduate background. So coming from a business background would suffice, but it's more of degree equivalency, and the aspect of like I graduate from an institution with 3-year degrees, or is it equivalent to a US 4-year degree kind of thing, but not necessarily particular to the undergraduate degree.
Okay, so another question. Guide me about what if engineering undergrad students want to switch career into banking? Is it a sound idea? I think he's trying to ask that, is it okay if I have an engineering background, can I switch it to MBA? Can I go for an MBA?
Jake, you want to take a stab?
Yeah, sure. I would say absolutely. We get a lot of students with engineering backgrounds, and I think a lot of programs do. It's very common for engineers to get an MBA. MBA is an opportunity for people to what's called pivot in their career. They want to change, go to something new. And I think it's especially true for engineers who have the quantitative ability, they've got those hard skills, and now they need to get whether it's finance or management or something like this, which an MBA offers. And so I think that's exactly right. That's what a lot of engineers do to take their career to the next level. If you're switching fields dramatically, if it's something that's very different from your experience, I would just make sure that the program you're applying to and their career office will be able to facilitate that change. Not everyone has the resources to help you switch to every different program. So just make sure that's something you look into.
Just to add to that a little bit, do not discount, whether it's engineering or any other degree, do not discount the strength of your previous undergraduate degree in pursuing your next degree. View it as the MBA is more like a lifestyle choice. So it's not just about content that you learn in the program. It actually teaches you many different things that are outside of the classroom as well, because you also learn a lot about networking. You learn a lot about leadership opportunities. You are thrown into many different actual business situations and case study scenarios wherein you will assume that role and navigate different types of content. So your previous degree, your previous skill sets is not something to be packed away and come with just a blank slate. No, it is building on what you already have and adding to your repertoire of skills. So.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question, and this is a general question. Which program is better, MBA or Masters in Finance?
This would, I think, depend exactly on what the introspection aspect that the student goes through will decide this. So this is where you need the self-inquiry. You know, if you already have some amount of work experience and content knowledge in finance, then you might be eligible to go into a general MBA, but also specialize particularly in finance. So you could do an MBA with a finance specialization. But then what is the end goal? Is the end goal to go into you know, one particular area in the banking industry, or is it like to be hardcore, go into, I don't know, most commonly I have heard, I want to go into investment banking. Well, investment banking happens to be a very niche field, and it's a very small number of people who are not retiring anytime soon. So have you considered investments in general and moved into different types of industries with finance opportunities, or like, you know, expanding the notion of finance, I suppose, as opposed to just being very, very niche specific. If you are a fresh undergrad or a fresh graduate, I'm sorry, and who wants to specialize in finance because you want the content knowledge, then a specialized master's might accomplish the same aspect for you, but it will also give you that additional depth of study, and you could potentially get into the industry then, and then through experience rise up in the ranks. But it really depends on which aspect of management or actual nitty-gritties that you want to get into. So that's a way of looking at it, and that doesn't come unless you take a hard look at your own background and interests and see what it is that you want to do.
Okay, thank you. So I have few questions which my advisees have sent. And these are like general questions as well as some specific questions. What is the difference between an MBA and EMBA?
Oh, okay. Jake, do you guys offer exec MBA?
We do.
Okay, so you're the best person to talk about it.
Yeah, it's the main difference with executive MBA versus traditional is that executive is usually for people who have a lot of work experience. So it's typically older professionals who are looking to kind of polish their career versus younger people with less experience who are trying to either take their career to the next level or make that career pivot. Executive MBAs, they pamper you a lot of times. You know, they're usually full service as far as they basically provide everything you possibly need. But they're usually very expensive, very, very expensive. And so I would say unless there's a specific program that you're really interested in, or maybe you're a doctor who's looking to gain some management skills after 20 years in practice, executive MBA is not for most people.
Oh, okay, thank you. So another question. How much does my professional experience weigh in the process of admission?
I would say if you're applying for the MBA program, it does weigh quite a bit. In fact, that is one of the things that we do look at. And this goes back to that aspect of the holistic review that Jake touched upon, which is we don't just look at your test scores, we also look at your work experience and weigh your candidacy in the overall holistic way to understand what your educational and professional backgrounds are and whether they match with your professional aspirations and whether we are a good fit, we as in like the program that you choose, whether that program is a good fit to help you get to your professional aspirations. So work experience does play a huge role.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the admission interview covers?
Yeah, admission interview. I mean,
there's no formula.
Yeah,
no formula. Okay.
It can vary real wildly, but we're gonna most of the time we want to get to know you, why you want this MBA, and then people have different approaches to interviews, but generally we want to see how you handle yourself. A lot of it's just kind of gauging who you are. We want to gain as much information about you as we can and how you handle yourself in certain situations, but a lot of times it's just kind of getting a feel for who you are. Okay,
okay. So another question, will I qualify for admission with a 3 years undergraduate degree?
So I think you guys as the advisors are better suited for that. But from the university perspective, I would say, as long as the degree equivalency is matched. I know that with certain countries, they can do a WES evaluation and that can demonstrate, the degree equivalency with a US bachelor's degree for 4 years. But I also know that in other countries, WES has already done the credential evaluation and has identified that certain 3-year institutions would qualify towards a 4-year degree equivalency. So I would say look into that. But also the university itself would possibly have certain guidelines listed on their website as well.
Yeah, I would say check with the school. Each school will probably have a slightly different policy on this. Mm-hmm. In my experience, generally, 3-year degrees from Pakistan are not equivalent, but mm-hmm. some schools may accept them. And I think more schools are going that direction. So, there's hope.
Okay. So this question is for Syracuse. After admission, can I request a deferral to a future term?
Yes. So especially in the current scenario that we are experiencing with the pandemic, we are inviting students to apply, get their decision, and as of now, touch wood, we are planning to open in the fall, but we are also cautiously optimistic about it and making arrangements to offer content online. Our current students have actually finished up this semester. They will be graduating this weekend. They have completed the semester through online classes. So yes, we are offering the opportunity for students to get admitted, and if needed, because even though we might be able to open, it is possible that you are not able to travel from your country because your lockdown is not lifted, and we want, of course, everybody to stay safe. So we are offering the opportunity for a deferral. Whether the deferral is for the whole year, which would be advisable depending on how the program is organized, and how the deferral process actually works is something for a more detailed offline conversation. So please feel free to reach out to me with specific questions.
Okay, so I have another question, and that is for Syracuse University again. May I request a fee waiver?
Absolutely, because you attended this session. If you write to me, We do offer application fee waivers, and I will be happy to provide you with the code. So if you could get my email address, you could either write it down, sramak01@syr.edu, or connect with EducationUSA Pakistan and request my email. And please reference that you attended this session so that I know what's the source, and I'm happy to provide you with a fee waiver. And I'm also happy to offer this to all other prospective applicants, that you can reference this session and get a fee waiver, not just for this year, but also if you're applying next year. And if you would like to have a detailed discussion about your particular candidacy, then please do email me, and I'm happy to also do a Skype call.
Okay. Okay, so this question is for Jake. How many credits are required to complete the MBA at Ohio University?
It's pretty high. I want to say it's 50, right around 50. I mean, credits are, it's subjective since each university does credits differently. But usually students are going to take 4 classes per semester. They can take more. Sometimes they might take 5 or even 6. Yeah, credits, I mean, like we might count credits for each class is 3 credits. In Syracuse might count each one is 5, but really you end up taking the same number of courses.
Okay. So is financial aid available to international students? That's again a general question.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And if I've been denied admission, may I receive feedback on my candidacy?
That is a little difficult to respond to in terms of just the volume of applicants, and but we might be able to offer just in terms, and I know EducationUSA offices and advisors do this as well, where you allow the student to understand based on what they have submitted a generic understanding. Sometimes it might be something as what should I say, obvious as there is a minimum score requirement posted on the program website and you don't meet the minimum score, right? But sometimes it might not be so obvious because you possibly have filled in all the blanks and then yet there is a deny. So that's then based on a holistic review as to whether it's not the right program fit. So Jake, you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I'd say that's a pretty good summary.
I mean,
tough.
one way of looking at it, I think, is like, I'll just give you an example based on Syracuse and Whitman School of Management. For instance, we say, we have it stated on the website that if you are applying to our MBA program, it's a minimum of 600 GMAT score. Now, when you have a minimum posted like that, obviously the understanding is that you will come at least close to it and surpass it. But if somebody is applying with, let's say, a 300, that is very clearly a signal to the admissions representative that possibly the student will struggle in the classroom, right? Because it's a heavily quantitative program. So you want to understand that admissions reps are not necessarily just gatekeepers who are preventing you from entering the program, but we are responsible for your success. So when we are looking at candidacy and looking at all aspects of the application, and if there is a denial, there is a reason for it, but while we may not know exactly why the admissions committee specifically denied a particular candidate, there are enough indicators, I would say, on the program website with details about the admissions processes that will give you a generic understanding, at least, of where you might have, missed the boat.
Okay, so I completely understand because since we administer the world largest degree program and we receive around 1700 to 2000 applications for Fulbright scholarship, and we don't give feedback, by the way, for those who are unsuccessful. So, and for you guys, because you guys receive like 10,000, 20,000 applications, so I understand it's very hard.
Any other questions?
Oh, okay.
I saw a good one actually in the Facebook post about do we accept or do they still have to take an English exam if English is the primary language of their institution? And the answer is generally yes, you still have to take it. Again, each university will have a list of countries where students from there don't have to take the exam. Generally speaking, though, students from Pakistan or who have their degree from Pakistan do have to take TOEFL or IELTS. Now, if you did your bachelor's degree in like the UK or something Canada or US, then that usually isn't the case. But if your bachelor's degree is from Pakistan, then typically you do still have to take TOEFL or IELTS.
Okay, so I have another question. If I get a scholarship for my first year, will it renewed? Will it be renewed automatically for the second year?
This, I think, is a very school-specific question, but in general, when the scholarship is offered, it is the total scholarship that you would be receiving during your duration of the program. So it's not just specifically put towards 1 year unless you work it out with the program office to do it that way.
So another question is that I have been unable to schedule a GMAT or GRE exam just because of the COVID-19. What are my options?
Yeah, there's basically 3 avenues here. One, you can try to take it online. Most of GMAT and GRE are offering online opportunities to take the tests right now. It may or may not be available in your area. If it is, that's a good opportunity. The other would be to see if the school you're looking at applying to is waiving GMAT or GRE right now. I know a lot of schools are doing that. So if you explain the situation, they may say, okay, we understand you don't have to take it right now. Or the third option is you would have to basically wait and defer your application or wait to apply for next cycle.
Yeah, and if you visit the ETS website for GRE and the GMAC website for the GMAT test, they actually tell you about the online options and what the duration of the test would be and other details as to how you can access it and sign up for it.
Okay, so we have 4 last questions, I guess. So this question is for Syracuse. Shri, do you accept application for a spring entry into the MBA program?
Unfortunately, no, because the way the program is structured, we are unable to start the program in the spring. So it would be a fall intake only.
Okay, and can my GRE score take the place of the GMAT?
Yes, we do accept GRE scores, but again, the word of caution that we will convert the score to the GMAT equivalent. So you do want to see how close to the GMAT equivalent you get. And yeah, and I'm happy to discuss specific questions offline as well.
Okay.
So do reach out to me with additional.
Okay, so this question is for Jake. Does the MBA program require calculus, statistics, or other quantitative courses as prerequisites?
So it's not required. We like to see it, but it's definitely not required since some of our concentrations and pathways are not very math intensive, so no.
Okay, so one last question, and it's kind of a general question. What kind of work experience does the admission committee consider?
Okay, so I'll take a stab at it and maybe Jake can add his perspective. When we are talking about work experience, we are typically looking at professional full-time work experience after you have completed your bachelor's degree. So internships are taken into account in the overall candidacy, but that's not really counted towards professional work experience. And there are reasons for it. Of course, like, you yourself would know if you have completed an internship, you know that the type of work that you are doing as an intern is very different from when you are given full-fledged responsibilities as a full-time employee of a particular organization. So because of that difference, you know, it's internship is taken into the overall candidacy, but then it's taken into account, but it doesn't count towards work experience. When you say also, we have entrepreneurs who apply, the way we view entrepreneurial experience is of course different from a 9-to-5 job, for instance. So do not discount the fact that, you know, you have entrepreneurial experience and not count it towards presenting it in that resume. So put everything in that resume that you think is relevant to your application and help us decide or come back with questions. But do not discount what you might have. By the same token, something which is very basic in terms of you are exploring different job opportunities and you have an initial job does not count towards, you know, like as though that's your whole career, because the first job that a person gets, we don't normally assume that that has just become your career, right? So it's your first job. So if you have switched jobs a few times, don't be afraid to state that and count all of those on your resume towards your overall experience, because we don't want to see gaps. And if we see gaps, then, you know, we do have questions as to what were you doing during that time. Jake, is that, you know, sound right? You have additional stuff?
I would agree with that. The only thing I would add is if you do, for whatever reason, have gaps, or if there's something about your work experience that maybe is non-traditional, but you think could be helpful or substantial, put it in your optional essay. That's a good place for that. That's the kind of context we need, where if we see that and it says, oh, they took a year off here, why? You know, what happened? Or, oh, it looks like they were working part-time, but in reality, maybe you had started your own business. You know, that can be really helpful for us to know that we might not be able to tell, you know, immediately on your resume.
Okay, thank you. So Shri, I think someone is asking for your email address again. Can you repeat that?
Sure, it's SRAMAK01@syr.edu. But also, if you want to maybe advance to that slide, yep, thank you. It's right there, and there's Jake's email as well. So feel free to reach out with specific questions, and, you know, do reference this webinar so we know that this is where we met you.
Okay, great. I guess that's all the questions we had. So one final comments. So Shri, you want to go first, and then we will wrap this session up?
Sure, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to doing more of these. You know, we have had a lot of success actually with doing these kind of webinars with EducationUSA Pakistan, and like I said, it's always been people from Lahore who have come to the program. So Islamabad, Karachi, waiting to welcome you guys as well. But if you do want to connect with our alum who was a Fulbright scholar and graduated in 2017, Muhammad Khan, I'm happy to introduce you, and I'm sure Muhammad would be happy to also talk about his experience at Whitman. I do have to warn you, he is quite the talker and has a lot to say, but had a fantastic experience as a student here at Syracuse. But then also there is Faraz Khan, who is currently in the program. Both these students came with very different backgrounds, you know, and both have been successful in their own right. Faraz is actually more focused towards business analytics. Muhammad came more with entrepreneurial experience. And so you can get different perspectives from speaking to both students. One thing that I did not mention in the beginning is that at the Whitman School, we do offer the full-time MBA, and we also offer about 7 specialized master's degrees. But within the MBA, you can choose to specialize in 1 or 2 areas. So you can do a dual specialization. So for specific details, please, again, feel free to reach out to me. And again, it was a pleasure. Special thanks to the EducationUSA team for making this happen and inviting me to be a panelist.
Jake?
Great, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to say thanks for the opportunity to do this. It's great to connect with the Pakistani community again. I don't, most of you probably don't know, I've been to Pakistan a couple times with Education USA. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. They're such wonderful and welcoming people, and so it's great to kind of get to digitally connect with everyone again. Yeah, anything you need, feel free to reach out to us. We do offer full-time MBA and a wide variety of specialized programs. I think it's actually a pretty similar array as Syracuse. And yeah, I'm real happy to chat. We've got a lot of options as far as pathways go, and we do have the whole Ohio State University also as a resource for you, 60,000 students. And you can take classes from outside of the College of Business. So there's a lot of opportunities to kind of mix and match based on your interests. But yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Okay, so thank you so much, guys. On behalf of USCFP and Education USA, I would like to say thank you so much for taking out time and waking up so early and talking to Pakistani students and talking about MBA and your respective universities. So thank you so much. Good luck, guys. Those who are applying, stay tuned. We'll have more interesting session next week. So thank you, Jake. Thank you, Shri. Thank you, guys. Allah Hafiz.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much.